Chris Kudialis, Adam Candy, here in the Las Vegas Sun newsroom, and we are excited to be joining you today for a live chat about the start of recreational marijuana sales in the state of Nevada, getting underway Saturday at midnight, the first time that in the state you can buy recreational marijuana. Medical marijuana, of course, has been on the books for a couple of years, but Chris, you've been covering this issue extensively. What can we expect come Saturday at midnight with the beginning of recreational marijuana sales?
Well, thanks, Adam, and that's, I think, a great question that a lot of people in the industry itself, people are asking what to expect, because in other states, we've seen 4 other states legalize marijuana for recreational use, and each state has had a different experience, from long lines at the dispensaries to losing all of their inventory basically overnight. And other states had a very smooth process. I think here in Nevada, the folks that I've spoken with, the folks that we've talked with for our stories, are expecting not too much in terms of lines, and also people in anticipation for this July 1st start date have been stocking up there at the dispensaries, making sure they're ready in the event that there is a huge rush. But Adam, 37 dispensaries will be open here in the Las Vegas Valley. Not all of them starting at midnight, only about 16 of them starting at midnight Saturday morning, but 37 in total throughout the day. So there's a lot of options here for consumers in the Las Vegas Valley, and a lot of supply.
We know out there in Facebook land, you probably have a lot of questions about what's legal, what's not, what's available, and we're hoping that we can answer some of those for you here today. Chris has covered this issue extensively for us at LasVegasSun.com, in the Sunday magazine. Chris has done some Q&A type work that I believe has answered a lot of those initial questions that people might have, but now you've come back with another round of that that's coming out on LasVegasSun.com. Tell us a little more about some of those questions that you're answering.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot. So first of all, the recreational marijuana was, it became legal for possession and use thanks to the November 8th ballot question being approved by voters. But what was really transpired over these past 6 months, the Nevada State Legislature has been hammering out the framework for which dispensaries can sell, where, how much people can consume, everything from the marijuana being distributed from the cultivation and production facilities to the dispensaries. And yeah, there's just a lot to it. But tomorrow's Q&A, we'll see new questions on, well, I guess what hasn't changed is how much is available for sale. And adults age 21 or older can purchase up to 1 ounce of marijuana flower, or the equivalent, which tends to be about 1/8 of an ounce THC content of edibles and concentrates like shatter, wax, and oil.
So if I'm someone who on Saturday is going to walk up to one of those 37 locations and attempt to buy a marijuana product, what can I expect? What's that experience going to be like? I bet there are a lot of people out there who've never done this before, who really don't know what it's going to look like.
Right. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people preparing perhaps for their first time, at least buying legally marijuana. But unlike medical, you won't have to present your patient card here in Nevada. It's just like buying alcohol in the sense that you'll walk in, you have to show your ID once you make it to the register to show that you're 21 years of age or older, and that's really it. Each dispensary is different, but most have what they call bud tenders, or customer service representatives.
Bud tenders, I like that.
Yeah, playoff bartenders, if you will. Very popular name in the industry, but folks that can kind of answer some questions as you walk in. I'm looking for this kind of effect, or, some people, like experts have projected that even medical buyers are going to be taking this recreational route, because you don't have to sign up for the state registry, you don't have to pay for a state card. The legislature's tried to make that state card more affordable, make it easier for those who really have medical needs to get that. But it'll be just as much, the average person who doesn't have a medical condition as much as medical buyers. And what the bud tenders are there for is to really help you understand which strain, which edible, which concentrate is best for what you're looking for, and help you accordingly.
Well, we know you probably have questions. Some of you were nice enough to pre-submit some questions on Facebook and via social media. We're taking those questions live now. So if you have a question for Chris Kudialis, who has been covering the marijuana issue extensively here at the Las Vegas Sun, please submit that right now, and we'll be happy to get to as many of those as possible. You know, Chris, we actually had a few questions that were pre-submitted, so we'll take some of those now. And Evan G. asked us on Facebook, what will the expected price increase be relative to medical marijuana?
It's a great question, Evan. It'll be at least 10% when you go to check out. I think at dispensaries you will see the recreational price. Another point that perhaps we would get to later, but want to bring this up now. When part of the dispensary shopping experience is that, unlike other states, all marijuana here in Nevada, it's not necessarily labeled for recreational or for medical use when you go inside the dispensary. So you're just looking at marijuana. And when you get to the register, that's when you either present your patient card saying that I'm a medical buyer and I want this for medical use, or you just check out as recreational buyer. So the price discount will be about 10%. You'll see the recreational price when you first go up, and then you have the option to present your medical card and say, I'm a medical patient, and it could be as much as 20%. So we'll see, not tomorrow, this weekend. But yeah, it'll be at least 10%.
We have one of our first live questions in from Scott G. on Facebook. And Chris, you mentioned the fact that you'll present ID. Scott wants to know, will your ID be scanned?
Yeah, it's a good question, Scott. No, it won't be scanned. It's just like buying alcohol, where you just have to present it to prove that you're over 21 years old, and you're good to go.
Okay. Well, Scott, thank you very much for the question. Please, if you have more questions, submit them for us here from the Las Vegas Sun newsroom. Chris Kudialis and Adam Candy. Another question from Michelle G. on Facebook. How much can we have on our person of that marijuana without getting in trouble? What's legal?
Ballot question 2 calls for the amounts that we discussed earlier, up to 1 ounce of marijuana flower, or up to 1/8 of an ounce of the equivalent of concentrates coming from your edibles, your oils, and other products. As far as being on your person, you know, at the dispensaries, you're only allowed to purchase the legal amount as a recreational buyer.
Sure.
But it's as simple, based on conversations with police and with dispensary owners, it's as simple as just going back to your car, leaving your purchase there, getting back in line and purchasing the legal amount again. The risk that you run is if you're driving, or as Michelle asked, having more than that 1 ounce of flour on your person, that's when you're subject to being fined, which is $100.
Chris, I think along those lines, another question that people have been asking is, where is it allowed for me to smoke? Where is it allowed for me to consume?
A lot of people asking that question, and I think that was perhaps one aspect that legislators were frustrated with, that they would have liked to have made greater strides with. For the time being, the only legal place to consume marijuana is in a private residence that you either own or that the owner has approved marijuana use there. And that means your back porch, means, you know, front yard, inside your home. But really, other than that, it's not allowed in casinos. It's not allowed in public places. It's not allowed, you know, churches, schools, synagogues, what have you. It's not allowed. So really, unless you have, and it's difficult for tourists too, because in casinos, you know, a lot of people stay there, hotels. They like to enjoy their time here in Las Vegas, whether they're gaming, seeing a show, enjoying a restaurant, and even outdoor bars, you're still not allowed to consume marijuana products at all.
If you have those questions for us here on Facebook Live, please keep submitting them. We have another one in. Michelle, thank you again. Do police have a DUI test for marijuana? So we know that in the past that the smell of marijuana has been something that police could use as a reason to take a closer look at things. Is that still the case?
Absolutely. The smell of marijuana can be a lot of times probable cause for police to administer a sobriety test. So marijuana won't register on a breathalyzer test, for example, but it's tested in the way any other drugs are, in the sense that if police suspect that you're impaired while you're driving, they'll pull you over and you'll go through a series of field sobriety tests. The legislature this past session made it illegal for, basically banned using urine samples to test for marijuana content. So really all that they have now are blood tests and suspicion based on failed sobriety tests that, that could contribute to a DUI.
Appreciate you joining us on Facebook Live. This is Chris Kudialis, our marijuana reporter at the Las Vegas Sun. We have another question from Tina A. Thank you for your question, Tina. Is there enough supply to keep up with the initial demand? And Chris, I know this is an issue that you were just looking into this week.
Yes, yes. And I think as far as dispensary owners go here in the state, people are just keeping their fingers crossed. In Portland, or in Oregon, for example, there were over 100 dispensaries that went from medicinal sales to recreational sales on October 1st, 2015. And on that day, there were so many dispensaries that there weren't long lines. Supply wasn't dashed, wasn't taken out right away. But on the other hand, in Colorado, for example, there was significantly less. The supply, the dispensaries did not have the time to stock up their supply like they have had here, because they, in Colorado, they label medicinal marijuana differently than recreational marijuana, whereas here everything that was medicinal marijuana before July 1st can be sold as recreational marijuana because it's the same thing. It's the same product. And I think folks, legislators, dispensary owners, people in the industry are hoping those regulations and relative leniency will allow them to keep their supply pretty stocked and avoid any interruptions or price increases for buyers here.
And there was an additional question that came up recently with a lawsuit that's been in the news from liquor distributors, and I know that's had an effect on those who are selling marijuana, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and there was even, perhaps this was a media-influenced fear.
Was it us? Did we do it?
I don't think it was us.
Hopefully
it's never us.
All right.
No, just kidding. But I think there were some questions in the media and maybe within the industry as well as whether or not this would start on July 1st after this injunction came out last week. Kind of the background on that, a Carson City-based judge issued an injunction for liquor distributors who, by ballot question 2, were allowed or were given exclusive access to distributing from the cultivation facility and the production facilities to these dispensaries. And a lot of people, when you really break that down and explain it to them, it's a curious circumstance because under the medicinal industry, folks were allowed, say I own a dispensary, you and I are co-owners of a dispensary, Chris and Adam's Marijuana Lounge. Or
we can probably
store.
come up with a better name, but give us some time.
Yeah, exactly. We need time for the name. So in the past, we could from our cultivation facility if we also had a license for that, which a large majority of people here in Nevada that own dispensaries also own cultivation, sometimes production facilities, so they're vertically integrated. But under the medical marijuana model, we could distribute our own marijuana, and that would make sense, right? We can do it from our cultivation and load up our stock that way. Well, under the ballot question 2, the requirements in this new recreational model are that the people transporting the weed have to be liquor distributors. And that was kind of a special interest, if you will, where that the liquor industry entered what is expected to be a very big business here in Nevada and also contributed to that campaign, donated nearly $90,000 to passing ballot question 2. But as a result, they have written in the ballot question that they're given exclusive license unless that exclusivity makes it impossible. So it's basically saying, alcohol distributors, you have exclusive rights to this only if you can handle all these shipments. But if not, we're going to open it up to the people currently doing it. And so in the past 8 months, that has the Department of Taxation, who's in charge of regulating the new industry, has determined, I guess, back in March that there were not, in fact, enough alcohol distributors to make this industry go. So they let everybody else back in that was already doing it. And they haven't issued license, but we're talking just applications. There were 92 in total, and 87 of the applications came from non-liquor distributors. And so basically that it was set to go, and some individuals from the liquor distributor, actually a new group that was formed earlier this year, issued a petition to a Carson City judge and was granted an injunction, basically putting that on hold.
Okay.
So long story short, it's a very complicated process, and a lot of people want to know the details of that. It's really complicated, but long story short, the liquor distributors right now have the rights, but they haven't really set up a plan how they're going to do it. They haven't been granted the license. And earlier this morning at a press conference, we asked, so if recreational supply runs out, what's going to happen?
Right.
And they don't know yet. There's no way to get that marijuana from the cultivation and the production facilities to the dispensaries, but it's something they hope to have worked out in the next month, and whether that means appealing the injunction, which the recreational industry has done, and keeping their fingers crossed that judge rules in favor of them, or just hoping these alcohol distributors are able to get up to speed very quickly.
Good information. Michael C. would like to know, are there some stores that are not going to switch from medical to recreational? So will they basically just stay with the medical model?
It's a good question. Right away, the majority of dispensaries here in Nevada are going to recreational, but local municipalities have the ultimate say in that. And three of the biggest cities here in Nevada to not allow their dispensaries to make the move to recreational are Henderson, Sparks, and Carson City. Well, I guess Carson City only has two dispensaries. But Henderson, for example, you have five medicinal marijuana facilities, dispensaries that have, from the state, the okay to be recreational dispensaries. And because of the Henderson moratorium, it's called, they're going to have to stay medicinal until Henderson, the city itself, says, okay, we'll let you do that.
Okay.
Sparks, actually, it's pretty much all of northern Nevada. Of the roughly 23 dispensaries up in northern Nevada, only 5 of them will be starting recreational sales on July 1st. The rest of the folks that I spoke with were either staying medical until January 1st, the date outlined in ballot question 2, or waiting for the cities of Sparks and Carson City to move forward, hopefully later this month. So to answer your question, yes, there still will be medicinal marijuana facilities for the near future. And also in these dispensaries, again, for the recreational dispensaries, you can still buy medical marijuana products. It's going to be the same products that they had before, exact same products.
Yeah.
You'll either have the option to say, I'm not a medical patient, or I am.
We're here in the Las Vegas Sun newsroom. Chris Kudialis, our marijuana reporter, is taking your questions right now. So please submit anything you want to know about the beginning of recreational marijuana on Saturday. We have a few more questions that were pre-submitted. And Adonis A. from Facebook would like to know something that I think a lot of people have had questions about. How will this affect drug tests? Specifically, what's this going to mean in terms of your employer?
Great question. Yeah. As far as drug testing goes, it's still in the employer's hands. So I think, for example, MGM Resorts we spoke with for a story earlier this year, and they said that they will still be holding their employees accountable for marijuana. And I think that, although we haven't spoken with employer by employer, for the most part we just spoke with some of the casinos, it really still is in the hands of the employer. There's no laws. There was legislation introduced to kind of require employees of certain licensing boards to have kind of lenience with that, but that legislation did not make it through. So 100% in the hands of the employer. If you've tested positive for marijuana, your employer has the right to say adios.
Something to be aware of, definitely, in terms of making your decision about whether or not you want to purchase recreational marijuana beginning Saturday at midnight. We know some stores will be opening right at midnight to begin those sales, so your opportunity is just within a couple of days here. More from Facebook right now. And we have a question from Sophia D, and I know we kind of edged toward this a little bit. Will there be a designated spot for smokers from out of town and for locals? So we covered the idea that you need to be within your own home or in a residence where the owner has given you permission.
Right.
But the idea was definitely brought up for recreational marijuana to be an economic boon for
Right.
Nevada for tourists to be able to come and to purchase that recreational marijuana. But of course, the question then becomes, where can they smoke it?
Right. Great question. And another, as we talked about earlier, it's something that I think legislators really wish they had gotten some kind of legislation through for this. There were plenty of bills that were proposed. Tick Sagerbloom proposing a bill for cannabis lounges where certain businesses can obtain licenses for people to go and use marijuana there, kind of a hookah bar, hookah lounge, if you will, style business, but ultimately didn't get through. And there was some talk that even though it didn't make it through on a state level, that this is something that the local municipalities like the Clark County Commissioners or the Las Vegas City Council wanted to push something like that through, that it would be possible. Speaking with folks of those respective governing bodies, it was, it was a mixture of we're not interested or we didn't know we could do that and we don't think we can do that. So to answer your question, really the only place where you can legally use it, even if you're a tourist, is inside a private residence where the owner says it's okay, or somebody's home. And unfortunately, if you're staying in a casino, if you're staying in a hotel, the owners of those places are not giving you the okay, because especially for casinos, they risk losing their gaming license for that, for marijuana use, for permitting it. Because as you know, one walk through the strip, and even now you get whiffs of flower here and there.
It has been known to happen. Facebook Live here in the Las Vegas Sun newsroom. Chris Kudialis, our marijuana reporter, is taking your questions live about the start to recreational marijuana sales on Saturday here in the state of Nevada. John C. has a question from Facebook. Thank you, John. What about cannabis and THC-infused lotions and balms? And will dispensaries carry these sorts of products, and do those require a prescription, or are those also available for recreational sale?
Great question. That's another example of a product where a lot of people do use those lotions medically, and both lotions, balms, oils, all the above will still be included in the dispensaries for both medical and recreational purchase. The only difference being to buy it medically, you need a card. You get a 10 to 20% discount, and to buy it recreationally, you just need to show your ID. But those are good to go. They're readily available, from what I understand, at most dispensaries. And, we would never encourage anything like this, Adam. But, kind of the way around, people ask, how could Nevada have these laws where we're advertising our city, Las Vegas, here as a marijuana destination, but yet we don't have a place where you can legally use it? How could that be? And a lot of what some people are thinking about or resorting to, what we've seen in other states like Colorado, for example, where there's similar tight legislation on where you can use the plant, where you can't use it. You see a lot of people resort to edibles. You see a lot of people resort to these lotions, balms, oils, because you can't really, unless, driving's another issue, but when you're walking around, if you've used a controlled amount, it's not something that somebody could would smell from a distance. Right. It's not something that would really call the attention of people. So that's kind of been a resort for a lot of folks wanting to use the product recreationally, is consuming edibles, using lotions to get that THC, that CBD effect without, stinking or, blowing smoke everywhere.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Well, we appreciate all the questions you've been submitting here on Facebook Live. Chris Kudialis, along with Adam Candy, here in the Las Vegas Sun newsroom. And I believe we have one more question. This is from Ray B. on Facebook. He'd like to know, can I bring weed I buy in Nevada back home to California after I buy it? So now we're into a question of transporting it across state lines. I think I know where we're going with this answer, but Chris, fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Ray. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for asking. You can't legally transport weed from or over state borders. So that means bringing marijuana in from California to Nevada, from Nevada to California, from Nevada to Arizona, anywhere across the country. Although possible, it's not legal. And again, it's if you have the legal amount of marijuana in your possession in your car here in Nevada, you drive across the border, the chances that you're going to be stopped and searched for it probably very small. So maybe a risk that some people are willing to take, maybe not something that police will be enforcing on a high level. Another question that we get a lot is whether or not people can take marijuana in an airplane.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So with airspace being federally owned, it's illegal to have it on an airplane. And also TSA, for example, if they see you with a large amount of marijuana, they'll alert local authorities, and you'll get dealt with there on the scene. But with that being said, talking with a TSA spokesperson, marijuana is not necessarily. TSA looks for threats to aviation, so they look for anything that could propose or that would make a flight dangerous, that could harm people. And marijuana is not something that they specifically search for. And we've seen it get brought. I have to share this. When I was in Portland with some legislators and people from the industry, there was marijuana purchased right before the flight went back to Las Vegas. And when you see folks purchasing a certain amount of marijuana, there's no way it's going to be consumed in the hour and a half you have before your flight. So, people are able to get that on the flight. It's not something that is, legal, if you will, but it's not something that's specifically high on authorities' lists of cracking down on the plant.
Hopefully the statute of limitations has passed at this point on what Chris is sharing with us, so we'll pass on that one. Chris, a lot of questions. We've tried to get to many of them here today. I'm sure people will have more. We encourage everyone to check out LasVegasSun.com tomorrow. Chris has an extensive Q&A in which he's going to go through some of the more common questions that we think people might have about the start of recreational marijuana on Saturday. Chris, Adam, thanks for joining us on Facebook Live here from the Las Vegas Sun.